How's it going, everybody? We are back again for some more Genshin Impact. This is a video that for those of you that regularly play Genshin, you can probably just skip over. Because what we're going to be talking about today is how you can prepare for 1.6 and how 1.6 is basically going to be coming tomorrow. The downtime is going to end up hitting at least my time, which is Pacific time. We're going to have the downtime at 3 p.m. and then there's supposed to be 5 hours of downtime. So the game's only going to be coming back online around 8 p.m. if not later Pacific time. So use a calculator thingy to check it out for yourselves and see what your time zone is. Now, the interesting thing is that you will be able to pre-install the update. I think they have pre-installation for mobile phones and PC. I'm not sure if it's on the PlayStation version of the game, but if it is, cool. Oh, scratch that. You can actually pre-install the update on PS4 and PS5 as well. But the one thing that I find super duper strange is version 1.6, the entire area of version 1.6 is limited time only. So it is going to be gone, removed from the game once we move on to version 1.7, which is so far shaping up to look like we're going to end up getting Inazuma. So I guess they're going to end up having another quest line that'll introduce us to it or something. I don't know, because obviously we haven't heard anything about 1.7 yet. But moving right into the update details, you can see new limited time area. This area is only available during 1.6, which I find really weird because there is specific resources that we can only get from this area, including the Maguu Kenki boss, which is a new boss that has new materials, most notably that are going to end up being used for Kazuha. Maybe these materials will end up being used for future characters, who knows? But the point is that this boss, the fact that they are removing all the content from 1.6 tells me that this boss is more than likely going to be thrown into Inazuma somewhere. It would be appropriate as well, you know, if, you know, it thematically fits with the Japanese area of the game. So we'll just have to wait and see. There is also a new plant, the Gnoria or something. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's basically a sea flower of sorts. And that is going to end up being a resource that is on the islands of 1.6, which I'm assuming is just going to be thrown into the next update as well, just because of the fact that the entire area is going to end up being closed off. It's kind of weird, right? So in order to actually unlock the area for yourselves, you're going to have to meet the requirements, which is completing Klee's story quest. So hopefully you've already done that. And then completing Archon quest, Prologue Act 3, Song of the Dragon, and Freedom. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the quest line that gives you Ajdaha, which is a weekly boss. Which means you gotta be pretty darn far in the storyline in order to even access this content, which is also limited time. Personally, I don't understand the practice. I think it's super weird that they wasted all of these resources developing a new area only to have it removed. But anyways, in the, you know, when 1.6 ends up hitting tomorrow, we're going to end up having the Klee banner. So that's going to end up being the first one that will end up showing up. It's going to end up having these characters right here. There is also going to end up being the weapon banner, which this is going to end up being the weapon banner that shows up during Klee's banner. And Klee's banner is going to be available for 3 weeks before Kazuha's banner is available on the 29th of July, if I'm not mistaken, because it's around for 3 weeks. At which point we'll end up getting a different weapon banner, which is going to end up introducing a new weapon. And then, of course, the banner of Kazuha himself. Haha. Let me actually go through. Is this the one? I think this is the page. So you can always access this so long as you ended up getting it in your mail. You'll actually get some Prima Gems out of, or Prima Gems? Mora. You get Mora out of this. So this is kind of a preview to the update. So this kind of summarizes the patch a little bit better, but we'll still end up going through the patch notes themselves. So there's going to be a new outfit for Jean, which is going to end up being, this is ridiculous. So the costume for Jean is going to be $30 regularly, but during the 1.6 patch is going to end up being available for a discount and a limited time. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. It's not a super interesting costume. Like, at least if it ended up making Jean look badass or ended up changing the effects of all of her attacks, maybe her ult looks completely different, that would be kind of neat, wouldn't it? Barbara's costume, on the other hand, we are going to be able to get for free from one of the events that is going to be in 1.6. And from onward of 1.7 and so on, like 1.6, once that's been removed from the game, you will only be able to buy this costume for, you guessed it, $30, the same as Jean's full price costume, which, oh my god. So speaking of the weapon that I mentioned previously, this is going to end up being Kazuha's weapon, which is going to end up being a 5-star weapon that has, I forget what the side stats are on it, but I know that the sub-stat is going to end up being Elemental Mastery. Yeah, okay, so that's the Freedom Sword, and the special passive ability of it is going to be part of the Millennial Movement that wanders amidst the winds. Increases damage by 10% when the character wielding this weapon triggers elemental reactions. They gain a Sigil of Rebellion. Sorry. This effect can be triggered once every 0.5 seconds and can be triggered even if said character is not on the field, which we've talked about Kazuha in another video, and I kind of mentioned, you know, in more detail, if you guys want to check that video out, how Kazuha is basically going to be a support DPS. He is at his best when you pop him out, throw down his ult, or use one of his abilities, and then you just put him back in your inventory. That's not how I'm going to play him, but that is his best in, like, that's the best slot for him. And this weapon is promoting that. So when you possess 2 Sigils of Rebellion, all of them will be consumed, and all nearby party members will obtain Millennial Movement Song of Resistance for 12 seconds. The Song of Resistance increases normal charged and plunging attack damage by 16% and increases attack by 20%. So that's your normal charged and plunging attack, and then overall all of your attacks as well. Once this effect is triggered, you will not gain Sigils of Rebellion for 20 seconds, and of the many effects of the Millennial Movement, buffs of the same type will not stack. So it's basically saying if you've got somebody else in your party you're playing in co-op and they have the same sword, you're not going to be able to stack both of the effects. You know, you're not going to be able to get ×2 of the effect. Obviously, refining it is going to end up making that stat better. Personally, I gotta warn you guys, stay away from the weapon banners. Unless you are not a whale, a Leviathan. You stay away from the weapon banners. I've had too many of my friends fall victim to how the weapon banners work because the drop rates on them are astronomically bad. You can get really lucky and get the weapon that you want, but I swear to God, the drop rates are more so featured towards the weapon that you don't want that isn't related to the new character. I may end up throwing some wishes on the weapon banner if I can get Kazuha to C6 and just so happen to have a few extra wishes, but I will not go further than getting 1 5-star in the hopes that it's this weapon, and there's a very specific reason why, which we'll get into a little bit later with the patch notes, because there is actually big changes coming to elemental reactions. In particular, swirl and electro elemental reactions are going to end up seeing a buff, and there's additionally going to end up being a buff to elemental mastery and how it scales as a whole. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. This is kind of just to tease you guys, right? So for the event, we'll end up getting this book for free, which I think the substat, like the passive on this, is actually pretty good. It's most of all for Klee, where when you tag an enemy with a normal attack, it boosts your charge attack, and then when you hit an enemy with a charge attack, it boosts your normal attacks. So you're kind of promoted to use back and forth of just your, you know, your auto attacks and your charge attacks. I don't think this is going to be Klee's best in slot by any means, but it's pretty good just for a passive 4-star catalyst. And then I don't really know anything about this bow, I'm sorry to say. But if we scroll down a little bit here, you can see that we got a bunch of different events coming along, but we'll kind of talk about these in a little bit. So on top of the new weapon, we've kind of already highlighted Kazuha, which is your boy, your Canadian samurai, finally getting added to the game. And oh boy, I'm excited about seeing him. Apparently he is, as we see, a wandering samurai from Inazuma who is currently with Liyue's Crux fleet, which is going to feature Bado and her story quest. A gentle and carefree soul whose heart hides a great many burdens from the past. There was actually a leak of his intro cutscene. I didn't watch it, but it did kind of show Bale, the Electro Archon, and oddly enough, it's against Genshin's terms of service, and yet there's plenty of YouTube videos out there that already go ahead and just show it. So anyways, moving on, there's going to be the new weapons, as we mentioned, and new gameplay. So we already talked about this a little bit in the 1.6 reaction stream that I ended up doing, where we're going to be able to move companions into our Serenitea teapot, which is quite literally characters that we've unlocked As they're sitting and chilling in your Serenitea pot, they'll continuously gain companionship XP, so you'll literally be able to just grind out their friendship name cards for doing absolutely nothing. Companions who remain in the Serenitea pot for a long time may take a liking to certain furnishings and prepare gifts for the traveler in return, which I'm not expecting to be anything big. Like, it's not going to be Prima Gems or anything. It's going to be smaller stuff. They finally, the fact that we are actually getting costumes does mean that we are finally getting a new mechanic, which is costumes in general. So hopefully down the line, we'll actually see some costumes that are actually interesting. Then there's going to end up being all the different events. So the first event, there's going to be there's going to be the main event, and that's going to be Act 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then there's the event shop. Eligibility is you have to be ranked 20, adventure rank 21 or above, and have completed the Archon quest song and Dragon Freedom, which I'm pretty sure is Azuha's questline, and the Trifolium chapter, Act 1, True Treasure, which is Klee's story quest as far as I know. So that's the requirements in order to end up taking part in the event, which is... I mean, you're gonna be pretty hard pressed if you're not adventure rank 21 by the time you've completed both of those quest lines. So yeah. So for Act 1, there's going to be a quest line that will, of course, unlock the event. And during the event duration, you'll be clearing out a sea of monster encampments. Travelers will obtain shiny float sim to exchange for rewards, blah, 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 blah. Basically, this is going to end up being your Zelda Wind Waker ship that you're going to be able to use to cannonball hilichurls and stuff. I really hope we can use it to attack enemies that are on the shore, because I'm really, really looking forward to messing around with this boat. It does confirm work with co-op, so everybody in your co-op game is going to end up having their own boat, and they can collide with one another. They did end up mentioning that in the dev stream. The second portion of the quest, or Act 2 of the event, I should say, when you end up getting a quest line, and you'll end up getting the gadget, the Wind-Blessed Harpastum. So during the event, the traveler can end up gathering Wave Splitter insignias by sailing the Wave Rider and flying to complete challenges within a time limit. I'm assuming, yeah, by reaching target scores. So this, they ended up actually showing off in the dev stream as well, where it's gonna kind of be like a race of sorts, where you're going to have to, glide around, get good times, get enough coins that you can end up actually getting through it. And overall, it seemed like it's a lot of fun. I'm just excited that we actually have a ship or a new vehicle or just a new mechanic, something new to do in Genshin in general. And then Act 3 will allow us to challenge the Maguu Kenki and complete specific quests to obtain rewards. Now, the weird thing is that based on the way that they explained this, maybe I could be wrong. It sounds like the boss might not be immediately available. We might have to wait until this portion of the event shows up. Or they explained it very poorly, and this is quite literally going to end up being the hypostasis event that we already know is coming, where we'll be able to fight not only the Maguu Kenki boss, but we'll fight a different version of Oceanid, another Geovishap, and stuff like that. And you'll be able to put on multipliers that will make these enemies a lot stronger, and you can end up doing that in co-op. But just based on the way that they say, during the event, challenge the Maguu Kenki and complete specified quests, I mean, it's probably quite literally just fight the boss and do specific parameters in order to end up gaining these rewards. Because they do also say that after the event is over, the traveler can continue to challenge the Maguu Kenki, but you'll no longer receive the event-related items. You'll still end up getting just the normal items from him, though. This is the boss that I had mentioned previously, where once 1.6 has gone away, I'm assuming they'll just throw him into Inazuma, because he's going to end up having the resources that I am missing for Kazuha, because of course it's going to end up being a new resource, which we'll get into a little bit later in the patch notes. So Act 4 is going to have another quest, and then during the quest line, traveler can use the Harpastum Bombs to defeat monsters. We've already seen this as well. It seems like an interesting enough event where basically we're just going to be fighting a bunch of enemies and throwing bombs at the same time, which, I mean, it could be fun. I like blowing things up. The bomb item, the gadget that we're getting for this event, is limited time. It does mention further in the patch notes that we will end up losing this item once the event ends up going away. So then they also seem to have in its own category the Echoing Tales event, which I assume means that the Echoing Tale might be coming way later, or is just going to be something that is across the board available at all times. But during this event, travelers who collect a designated number of Echoing Conches can obtain rewards such as Barbara's outfit, pre-mint gems and stuff. Even more events will subsequently become available, so stay tuned. I'm assuming that this is related to the volleyball mini game that we've seen. Just because it didn't seem to mention it in any of the previous patch notes relating to the events. So I would assume that that's where that falls into, which looked like a really, really fun minigame. Not gonna lie, it looked like Mario Tennis or something, and apparently can end up working in co-op as well. So there's also going to end up being the new Archon quest for Kazuha that's going to be in the game. I don't know if we'll be able to access that right away. Usually they wait until the new character is in. I personally think it would be really, really cool if we could get access to this Archon quest, trial Kazuha out during the quest line to get a kind of a sneak peek before he actually gets into the game and gets his banner into the game. But that's just me, because he's probably the most excited I've ever been for a character being added to the game. Literally, I've been waiting for this guy ever since the first leak of him in version 1.1, right after the game ended up coming out. But either way, this should end up giving some insight to Inazuma, hints at Bale, the Electro Archon, as I had mentioned. You know, there was a leak about this cutscene, and I kind of have a couple of my own fan theories of what's going to happen with Kazuha's storyline, because in the Kazuha trailer, or in the 1.6 trailer, they kind of have a line mentioning that they ended up, you know, Bale, I'm assuming, is talking about how somebody ended up stealing a vision, and then Dodoco ends up mentioning a fighting tournament, which is probably going to end up being related to one of these quest lines, and how they want to use the tournament to challenge a bunch of people and see how strong people are, but simultaneously they're also hoping that a vision that has since had the life taken out of it will end up reactivating. So if I had to guess, I would say Kazuha, we already know, is on the run from the Shogunate, which is, you know, Bale and Inazuma and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that he's on the run with his buddy. His friend probably gets killed by Bale, and then Kazuha took his vision or something, which would be pretty cool that he's actually using somebody else's vision. For me personally, I think it would be really, really cool if Kazuha killed someone for their vision and maybe had a little bit of a darker side to him. But the fact that they're painting him in such a positive, gentle light as a character lore is concerned tells me that my ideal of having him, you know, go towards the darkness is probably not true. He's probably just going to be a good character. But that is still interesting for lore aspects, you know, as much as I don't really talk about it in my videos as much. I'm actually really big into the Genshin lore, and I think it would be really cool. The idea that a vision that doesn't necessarily belong to someone can still end up being used by someone by, I don't know, the power of love or something. Who knows? Anyways, there's going to be a bunch of world quests as well. These are all limited time, of course, so you have to complete them before 1.6 goes away. They mentioned the new monster, which is the Maguu Kenki, a mechanical humanoid from another nation, which is from Inazuma, so they're probably just porting him to Inazuma. Anyways, now we get into the other additions. This is where I'm going to end up kind of skimming through this and mentioning the things that I think are worth talking about, but you can always end up reading through all of this stuff yourselves if you really want. So in case you guys are unclear about the new character development item, the Marionette Core, that is going to quite literally be, you know, when you end up killing, you know, the Animo Cube, for example, and it gives you not only the Animo related gems, but it also gives you the Animo Cube item specifically. That's all the Marionette Core is it's just going to end up being the specific item from the Maguu Kenki, which is going to end up being an ascension material for Kazuha and probably characters in the future. So then there's also the regional specialty, the Sea Ganoderma. Again, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I don't care. That's the water flower that I mentioned. It is also used for Kazuha's ascension. It says can be collected by other means after the end of 1.6. So yeah, they're probably just going to port all of this into Inazuma. Spiral Abyss is also seeing a change where it increases swirl damage by 300% and the AoE by 100%. I mean, of course, they're going to set Spiral Abyss up for your boy Kazuha, because, of course, he's an Anemo user and triggers Swirl constantly. But still, that I just thought was hilarious. They at least are finally going to update the monster roster for floors 9 and up as well. So I wonder if we'll see the Abyss Lectern thrown into another area, or maybe just none at all. We'll probably see the Maguu Kenki thrown into the Spiral Abyss, which is... I'm dreading it, because the Maguu Kenki, the way that he works is when you get his health low enough, he starts creating shadow clones of himself, which all end up taking different types of elements and stuff. And there's new domain details at the entrance of domains, where you'll be able to see the leyline disorders, which is the debuff of the domain, or buff in most cases, and monsters of the current domain. So that's kind of a nice quality of life change. You'll also be able to go into your settings and change it so that 4-star weapons will automatically get locked the moment you end up getting them, which is kind of nice, because for me, I don't have any, I barely have any 4-star weapons, because I barely wish on the weapon banner, but also because I use them to forge up gear way back in the day, not realizing 4-star weapons were like actually decent. And I thought this was funny. The Traveler will no longer appear in the Expedition Dispatch character selection list. You know, when you're sending characters on expeditions, Traveler always gets in the way, even though it says, oh, you can't actually send him out. Well, now we actually can't send him out at all. He's not even going to appear on the menu. 4-star artifacts can be destroyed in return for Mora. Why? They're more valuable to use as fodder to level up your other artifacts. I don't get it. They changed it so that weapon enhancement material placement slots have increased from 6 to 20, meaning that leveling up weapons should be a lot easier. We'll finally be able to craft while in co-op mode. Thank God. That it took 9 months for them to add that to the game. This company is making millions per month, and it took them that long. God. The Adventurer's Handbook will now have a automatic function to track and navigate to enemies. So if you use the Adventurer's Handbook to find a Samatril, it'll actually show up on your HUD. You can kill it, and then I think it just automatically highlights the next one, which is pretty dang handy. Because up to this point, I've kind of already created my own custom route with my friends. And we could have really used this back in the day, I think, honestly. And now we're getting into the other changes, and this is where the big boy changes happen, because right away we can see increases the damage caused by major reactions, i.e. electrocharged, superconduct, overloaded, swirl, and shatter. So all of those other ones are electric related reactions. Swirl is when Anemo triggers with anything, that's a reaction. And shatter is when an enemy is frozen and you hit them with physical damage. That's actually the physical reaction in the game. But they're making it so that all of the damage is going to end up being increased with those reactions specifically when a character reaches level 60 or above. So this isn't going to change anything for people that are at the beginning of the game. And then simultaneously, you can see that they've increased the damage bonus provided by Elemental Mastery for major reactions, referring to the attributes panel in-game for the exact damage bonus amount. So if we actually, whoop, it actually is daily reset. Well, there you go. That means I can actually fight my weekly bosses after this. So if we go here, you can see Elemental Mastery. Bad example, I'm on Zhongli, so it's a 0.0%. But the second stat right there that says also increases damage caused by overloaded superconduct, yada, yada, yada. That percentage value basically is just going to be a lot bigger. Just because the way that Elemental Mastery scales is going to be bigger. On top of the fact that the reactions are also having a buff. So... I talked about this quite extensively in my Kazuha video, mentioning how I don't know whether Kazuha is going to scale better with an Elemental Mastery build or a flat-out DPS build. And it seems like with these changes, if they are significant enough, you're going to be going all Elemental Mastery or bust with Kazuha, which could be really, really interesting. I've got both builds already ready, so... I'm telling you, I'm super prepared for when he comes out. And I think that pretty much covers it. So if you guys wondered why I haven't had any Genshin videos over the past couple days, it's because honestly speaking, what was I going to cover? The only event that we had in the game was Mimitomo came to an end right away, and then we had the book event, which was disgustingly boring. When the update goes live, I'll be streaming Genshin probably like almost every day that I can to grind up the new resources for Kazuha, experience the event with you guys, and generally speaking, there's going to be a lot of Genshin videos again. And I'm really excited for the new area to explore, for the new boat. And oh boy, I am so, like, not only am I overly prepared in-game for Kazuha, I have been slowly writing a list of different video ideas that I could end up doing with Kazuha. Most of all, just helping you guys know whether or not he's a character you want to roll for, and we'll get into all of that accordingly. Also, tomorrow I'll probably have a video that will talk about whether you should roll on the Klee banner, because while I don't have Klee, one of my buddies has Klee and was using her as his main for a long time. So I've got quite a bit of footage, thanks to my friend, where I can end up showing you guys an example of an elemental mastery build on Klee, which slaps really hard, versus a DPS build, which is generally going to slap a little bit harder. But I'm going to wait till 1.6 comes out, because we're going to end up having the character trial of Klee when 1.6 ends up actually going live. So stay tuned for that. I guess that won't be just tomorrow. That'll probably be like, maybe it'll be in a day or two. I don't know, because the thing is, the update for 1.6 comes out like tomorrow night. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, dude. It might throw my schedule for a loop. But anyways, thanks for watching, gamers. Really appreciate it, and hope you guys are as excited as I am for the new content. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want, support the channel. Have a great day. Sign on. Stay epic, everybody.